With this game being a continuum instead of a finished art piece, people have their memories of the original replaced by the newer versions. We can't even grasp anymore what the original game was and how it was played. Finishing 4 versions of the same game in such a short time would seem pointless, but actually I relearned a lot of things about it playing the original final release. There was a time when such thing was possible. Instead of doing minor tweaks every month to feign hurricanic activity to please esports buyers and shareholders, a game could be considered finished. Like, having compatibility patches for modern systems would have been cool. But even after the day Steam was launched, most games on Earth were never patched to keep up with the times, even when they stopped working on Windows 12. Age of Kings is an iterative sequel to Age of Empires. Bigger buildings, new graphics, the new age. A person who has not wasted 3 years playing every version of every Age of Empires wouldn't ever notice the difference in gameplay. Maybe just some minor, very minor quality of life improvements. But, well, actually, the core tempo and the gameplay dynamics of this game are entirely different from the original, or from the remakes. Age of Empires was encouraging early raids and repair baiting, hunting the peasants and destroying town centers as fast as you can. Economy raiding looked pretty similar to StarCraft. The peasants are hurt, you have to protect them with your soldiers. Economy raids in Age of Kings are some of the most involved, since peasants can garrison into buildings and fight back, and even do that with just one button, exceptionally useful in the PlayStation 2 version. Entire sections of enemy's base turn into death traps that can melt your forces, especially on upgraded early units. Garrison towers, castles, and TCs have a lot of HP, and the game is balanced in such a way that only few specialized units have adequate siege DPS. Russian is really discouraged, or more like, the AI has trouble rushing you, since it goes all in on every attack. You on the other hand can circle like a vulture, picking off any enemy peasant that dares to go outside. Even during the late game, rushing in with your army will probably end in it being wiped out. Very few units can be universally effective and be sent in as a blob in enemy's general direction, without the attack move command absent from this game, and with the brain dead unit AI, that's for sure. Most PvE battles end up looking very middle-agey, big siege engines protected by infantry, either ramps attacking castles while being pelted with everything from up above, or lines of troops just standing outside the city while trebuchets hurl stones at it. Very cinematic. Before Stronghold, the War 1, came out, this was the most siege game we had. The flip side of that is that the defense is really strong. Taking a group of mid peasants and plopping a castle near the enemy is a viable strategy. If you research all the architecture upgrades beforehand, it will be also built pretty fast and will be exceptionally deadly. You can protect the peasants with 20 archer type units and instantly garrison them into a said castle, turning it into an arrow machine gun, significantly boosting its damage output. Add some bombard towers to deal with pesky rams and you got yourself a nice medieval fortification there. To balance that all the architecture related upgrades cost a ton of rare stone, or, you know, since you have wood only town centers, you can use those and or build several of them side by side. And how can we forget about Teutones plopping their wood only +5 range TCs on enemy's shores and building them fishing boats. The walls are way stronger than in the first game, and finally you can have gates, which don't let your enemies in unless yours open them. You can even lock the gates, preventing your idiots from venturing outside. For the simple walling there's cheap palisade, to deny your AI allies gold piles, but the only gate still costs stone. The DE way is way different. The stone cost were already removed in the Conquerors, and after all these years of patching, the buildings are not as strong and can be disassembled by medium packs of melee soldiers hitting them with butter knives. In Age of Empires so-called catapults are not that good. They lost their Warcraft 2 efficiency against units, unless it's a blob of scorpions. But at the same time, all but ballista towers can be easily overwhelmed, even often outranged even by archers. So you do not really need a dedicated long-range siege in most of the situations. Only juggernauts did matter on water maps. In Age of Kings, the buildings got an extreme boost to pierce defense. Castles with mandatory murder holes force you to actually think about fortifications. Fully upgraded knights are strong, but a castle is still dangerous even to them. Militia line have bonus attack against buildings, but it dies easily to everything, even with all the upgrades. The catapults units were remade into onagers, with their role changed from long range dedicated siege unit to scatter shoal or range trash. They have 0 DPS, because they shoot once per many seconds. They never can hit anything at all. AI literally scatters the second you click its units. The classic strategy of attacking ground doesn't work anymore. The AI just treats you in pots to avoid being ever hit. Onagers have no HP and even archers plop them with one volley, and they do insufficient damage against buildings anyway. The Onager line exists only to be a dangerous enemy. You snooze and entire swaths of your forces are wiped in a blink of an eye. If you don't brief PvP, there's no reason to ever make them. And even then, when people were sending Onagers against me in PvP in the outs, I was just wiping them out with cavalry raids. With these battle mechanics, you cannot protect them on open fields, and this game was created before corridor strategy became a genre. Scorpions, which were bringing rain of fire and creating hell on earth in the original game, are now literal vomit garbage. Like, they are supposedly useful in extreme edge cases. They have a giant attack bonus against elephants. If you want your Persian opponent and no one else to never build elephants, hold 5 to 10 of these with you. They also damage targets in a straight line, like a Gauss gun in many games, but no one walks in a straight line, and the secondary targets don't even receive full damage. Scorpions have negative HP breaking from one stray arrow. They have a giant footprint, which is the worst seen in this game. It means it breaks their AI and pathfinding entirely, and they ignore orders. With punny range, they can't concentrate fire, they waste more time snailing around in circles when dealing damage. And on top of it all, they are ugly and have ugly oversized cartoony projectiles. At least in the Age of Kings, they benefit from the blacksmith upgrades, resulting in plus 3 range. They are so bad that even when Yes-Path's barriers took over the game in HD and DE, they are still being buffed and buffed and buffed, instead of being nerfed and nerfed, like any useful and fun feature being pounced on by PvP cogs and deleted from the game for opposing conformity, uniformity and blandness. The variety of elephant units is also increasing with the patches, resulting in more matchups where Scorpions can have any use. The best solution, I think, was in the Age of Empires 4, where Scorpions were dedicated long-range sniper units to remove siege engines and tanky targets. Even a swarm of them didn't have enough DPS versus an army and was ineffective against their buildings. Perfectly balanced, as all things shouldn't be, but now they are patched to be Age of Kings style useless trash. The main siege engine in the sequel is a ram. Simple, effective, high pierce armor, decent HP pool. The only downside is the melee range and basically non-existent damage against mid units. It is good against overarms though. As the game is going into late medieval times, you can have some gunpowder units in the Imperial Age after research. Bombards are somewhat modernized with axe on wheels. Good damage, no setup time, relatively high mobility, outranges all defensive structures. They are pretty bad against the enemies, which just walk away from the slow flying bollocks. Even when the unit doesn't run away, your projectiles just bounce off earth with negative area of effect. Meanwhile, hostile bombards do hit your units. There is a semi-joke with Age of Kings throughout the world that the so-called Dark Ages had trebuchets. Everyone forgot about them, but this historical game enlightened entire generations about these massive complex siege engines with insane range. They are imposing and are so cool that they have to be set up before firing, just like StarCraft siege tanks. Nothing stationary is safe. The only way to counter traps is to send cavalry. They are absolutely terrible against unit though. The only unit target traps can damage is your traps, by the enemy. Yours hit the enemy once in 10 tries. The enemies hit yours more often than half the time. So in the end, even with defense structures being super strong, they are not OP. For the chosen setting, chosen topic and chosen mythos, this is some good siege gameplay with good balance. You can finally have gathering points for newly created units. You can even put the flag on the resources so the peasants will start gathering them. But they still don't start gathering after finishing the according resource drop-off building nearby. They do automatically seek targets inside their profession in an even bigger range now, though. You can't queue tasks yet. You can flag reasonable buildings so new units go inside, but you can't flag self. If your castle makes ranged units, it can only send them outside. The maximum number of selected units is also increased. Units can finally walk over farms, so you can build them near the drop-off buildings instead of making complex walkways. You can receive them with just one button, and you can steal enemies' cabbages by right-clicking them with peasants. Meat and berries are still not compatible, despite not requiring separate drop-off buildings anymore. Clicking one after the other resets whatever a peasant has had in its hands. Fishing boats can now build aquatic farms, which should be in every single game with dedicated fishing boats and depletable fish. When you age up, the game automatically says yes in the chat with the the canned voice line. Spies are the best thing in the entire genre. This should be in almost every RTS game. Instead of hunting down the last stupid peasant hidden in the fog of war across the entire map, you can show all the enemies for gold. There's a cap of 30,000, and the fewer entities is still alive in the game, the cheaper it gets. There are many things changed or removed in every next version of the game. Every gunpowder unit requires a dedicated research. Cartography and tracking are also gone in the remakes. Ramps upgrades cost tons of gold, which makes them really uncompetitive with the ranged siege options. All building related upgrades cost a lot of stone. The second game in the series has refined the debate between the premium and the trash units. The scout can now be upgraded to light cavalry. They are cheap, fast and look pretty. A good unit to deal with poorly defended and unattended siege engines for hunting peasants and monks and to deal with loose archers. Skirmisher is a stupid ranged trash units. They are supposed to represent javelinists, but their elite upgrade makes them look like an Olympic sportsman. Despite having a literal long-reaching spear, they are scared of cavalry and melee units and have a minimal range. They are generally not as fast and deadly as archers. They offer a very small bonus when garrisoned, but they cost no gold. When there is no fish, crowfish. Country girls make do. They also have some pierce armor, but a pack of archers still melts them. Their actual best use, 3D printing them in matches against breeds. The only hostile bowman against which skirmisher is a better choice than a bigger bow. A ranged trash unit for medieval game is a hard goal. On the one hand, a bow can be as cheap as a random stick from the forest and a string. Everyone made a bow in their childhood. Everyone hunted for the thickest and longest stick to make it strong. On the other hand, an expensive bow with expensive arrows is expensive and they require a lot of training to be used effectively. Crossbows are literally point and shoot, so they were given to the untrained conscripts, but as people consider them to be more advanced than Stone Age bows, it would be hard to explain to people that the advancement in this case is the simplification and accessibility. AoE 4 just removed the skirmisher and pretended that the bows are cheap and crossbows are expensive, despite including a historical-ish video about high-end bows and arrows. Spearmen are dudes with pokey sticks, a self-explanatory and obvious counter to all the cavalry. But the problem with trash units is that they are actually trash. Yes, they can deal with hard counters somewhat successfully sometimes in specific situations. They are a last resort option when you entirely run out of gold. But to say that the cost is a good balance point against expensive elite units, your pop cap should not be limited to 75 heads and wheels and sails. What does the cost matter? When a pack of paladins is invading your base, what could you do? Amass an equal number of pikes, each as strong as 0.05 paladin after calculating the hard counter? Even 200 is nothing. You hit 200 pop cap in less than 10 minutes, if you are booming. The cheapness works only when you have overwhelming pop cap difference, like every calf eating for 6 people to feed the horse. But then, your pathetic hooligan 5v5 brawls look even more pathetic at 1/6 the scale. And the production speed doesn't matter. To get 60 paladins, you just build 60 stables, which are a trash building, and good luck trying to take that thing down with your spears. Swords, archers and siege engines are all countered by the paladins. Camels are regional. This is not even a war game with defined platoons. Enemy scaff will not get tired by your spear lines. It's just a buhurt where fast units go past the melee defenders to cut down the archers and the siege engines. This doesn't play like the military battle maps. The AI employs a torrent of mishmash units, a half of which are extreme counters to trash units. Trash units work as intended only in micro fights and PvP, where they micro in the first minutes of a match. But if the openings are off each hour, they just boom into Imperial and amass elite units. Playing against the AI in playing the campaigns, only the archer line, most of the eunuchs and sometimes paladins do matter. The enemy almost never uses knight-only packs, so a full-ranged army has time to deal with individual knights and elephants, while melting all the rest, including medium-sized masses of skirmishers. We are back to Warcraft 1 baby, and this time no catapults. Unlike X-Men and bad bows from AoE, fully upgraded, civ bonused, best-case scenario, trash units are still inept. They can't destroy buildings, they struggle to hunt peasants, they can't defend against siege engines, and don't forget, the enemy AI is always kiting.
Clicking feudal, forgot the boar, alerted to berries, now 3 are on the floor.
The new sprites are pretty. Despite the amount of very cartoony units, the game still hits that parchment realism art style of the period. With new bigger resolutions, the buildings are of a bigger size, still not a full scale, but a peasant can fit into a house and live there, instead of towering above one. The animations do look choppy though. There is a funny cool intro, but it's still letterboxed, and it's not even distorted, at least not noticeably. The main menu is stylized as a street, like Heroes of Might and Magic 2. Not as awesome, but a solid try. And the original release uses this aliased wonky gothic font everywhere. Yes, the readability suffers, but with modern smooth through type fonts could have had something like this in the DE, instead of the most generic boring fonts. They could at least give us the capital letters. The game finally includes the full tech trees inside, and you can even look them up during a match. They list all the civilization bonuses and even the upgrades for the units. The information is still not complete though. Only while writing this, I discovered and tested that scorpions have bonus damage against elephants. The game never mentions it. Also, the tech tree is not present in the main menu. You have to start a skirmish lobby to look up something, and the tech tree uses the old primary MS Paint intense colors, and it breaks when scrolling with a mouse. You better be using the arrow buttons near the lower edge. Also, Japanese page doesn't show the team bonus. The game finally displays fishes on the minimap and shows the current population in the top panel. Also, the menu still opens with F10 instead of escape. The OST by itself is mediocre ambient techno orchestra synth. It kinda fits the game, and after playing it so much, it becomes instantly recognizable. After thousands of hours in Borderlands and Vermintides, I can't name a song outside of set pieces like Borderlands 1 Arena or Borderlands 3 Pisk Swing. During the Windows 7 to 8 ages, I received reports that the game did not work that well. It had the typical old DirectX purple colors problems. But today on Windows 10, the original CD game works just fine and survives the modern paradigm of constant alt-tabbing and second screens, well, for the most part. Sometimes it stutters like Rise of Rome and gets worse with the time. I finished it on 10900K, 3080 Ti, 32 RAM, PCI Express Gen 4 and NVMe SSD. One time it even completely froze. I almost beat the last Saladin mission and then lost 25 minutes of progress during the annoying part. So I was always ranting about the Unit AI in the Age of Empires 2 and in the series in general, excluding the third game and mythology. AoE HD is so long that I became born in its abysmal Unit AI, molded by it. I did not remove my initial notes, but I ended up being not negative enough. Then I compared to AoE DE and became even less critical. But now, after playing both the pure Age of Empires and pure the Age of Kings, my assessment was perfectly right from the very beginning. The latest patch of HD, the current version of 2DE, the 1DE do not matter. In apples to apples comparison between AoE and AoE 2, the first one wins both with its units AI and pathfinding. Having just beaten one of the hardest achievements in 2DE, I can say that the problem has never went away. The sequel runs on stances and formations, which are hidden by default. Stances is mostly a good addition. It's implemented better than AoE 3 and 4. The problem is that by default it has aggressive stance, so the second you are not looking, your freshly made stupid troops latch on some passing hostile scout and run after it across the whole map through enemy's base while being shot at and ignoring the melee attackers. And they can latch on a target during a melee fight, and then the unharmed target pulls them deeper into the enemy lines. The default stance should be defensive, a short pursuit and then return to the starting position. But then defensive doesn't allow them to chase the archers which are shooting them. The formations are a literal cancer. The good intentions are the hell. Your pack spreads out during an attack. You select them in order to attack a specific target. Instead of running there starting with the closest unit, your closest units run towards the farthest units to reassemble the formation before proceeding forward. And if you accidentally selected mixed arms, your fastest units will also match the speed of the slowest ones during the active combat. This is so bad in the CD version that it affects even the ranged units. And the formations are literally useless. Combined arms are dead arms. You send your units to attack the castle. Despite the horizontal line formation, they just pull back under fire to go forward single file and die. Units literally ignore or forget orders. Rams ignore the attack command half the time. You send a ship to one point, they go around the entire map in random directions. The transport ships work exactly as bad as in AoE. It like takes 10 tries to load units or let them go. The Forgotten has added the attack move command, but it's not here, and clicking anything pulls everyone into the formation. The insufficient workaround is the patrol button. It does somewhat work walk, somewhat ignoring the formations, but then the army marches back to the starting point when you are not looking. The unit AI is worse than all brand name RTS games of that generation. At this point I've beaten every numbered game in the series, many of them twice, and this is just shit. Age of Empires is better than Age of Kings. It is ruined with formations. Age of Empires is great. Age of Kings is not great. It's just fine. Maybe even outstanding at best, but for sure not great. It's kinda a cool idea to represent the long period of Middle Ages not by fleeting governments, but by the peoples who came out of the Roman Empire. That's why it's Franks and not the Frankish kingdom of Germans. That's why it's Teutons, Goths, Britons, Celts who are more French than the Germanic kingdoms bearing French names. It's all the people who had inherited Western Roman Empire in the very broad strokes, and the empires from the Eastern Roman Empire region. This game has its own history textbook in the main menu. It is stupidly hidden inside the gearbox in the DE. The civilization finally have one unique unit each, and each wonder has a different sprite. There are 4 sets of architecture, but almost every civilization has unique voice sets, roughly matching the peoples, usually using the modern languages, which really improves the atmosphere. Britons have an archer that can outrange all the defensive structures. The damage is tiny against buildings, but it's fun to destroy castles with just archers. They also improve the range of arbalests and have even cheaper TCs. Byzantines have a weaker knight, which is supposedly as good against spikes as a fully upgraded paladin. At least the defensive structures are sturdier. But no architecture upgrades? Come on. Celts offer a naked hobby and run faster. It's something like an improved champion. There's also the DPS bonus for siege. Chinese have a very cool unique unit. Besides the trebuchets, this game taught me about Juginu. These are dudes armed with assault crossbow firing full auto. Awesome. Franks have the stupid fantasy throwing axes. The gimmick is that it's a ranged melee unit, but compared to everything else they severely underperform. There's also a minor bonus to knights HP and cheaper castles, which makes Franks better at castle offense than at playing the game. Goths recycle Teutons voice pack. Their unique unit is an archer resistant champion, while the real champion is weaker. Also they have a slightly increased pop cap. Japanese is a fish and boat civilization. Good luck on the land maps. Their infantry has more DPS and their unique unit is a variation of a champion. Bit more HP, less attack. Also, they have an attack bonus against unique units, but in which situation would they feasibly use it? Mongols have improved light cavalry that dies exactly as fast as usual. Their unique unit is a mounted archer that doesn't suck and also melts siege engines. I don't know why calf archers are being a dildo. You would expect the devs to recycle the same unit behavior, but no, Mongodice unit AI and pathfinding actually work. Why didn't they fix calf archer then? The nomadic Mongols are tilling dirt and are living in Asian castles and homes. While the packing is just a gimmick in AoE 4, as nomads they have no walls nor castles, and their main source of food is herding. Persians get a bit of free resources and their offensive TCs have more HP. Their unique unit is a war elephant, a huge walking meat monstrosity with siege bonus, countered only by scorpions. Saracens have better ships and archers do more damage against buildings. You can't even tell. Their unique unit is a mounted ranged melee camel. The guys just throw their full sabers at people. As such, they just melt the knights and all the cavalry, including other camels. They are even not terrible against buildings, but why throwing sabers? As far as fantasy units go, could as well use the experimental crossbow mounted inside the shield for inspiration. Teutons have melee infantry with very high melee armor. HD edition changes made me love this civ with their insane castles and knights with unique looking animation. But in the original game, the knights are easily countered by ranged attack. The castles shoot them dead. Instead of a castle bonus, they have better towers and +5 range for TCs, which was a PvP nightmare, but against AI it's not as fun. This explains why I thought they are not fun until I finished HD. Turks offer a unique gunpowder unit that doesn't suck. Original cannoneers have terrible accuracy and are easily melted by the usual main forces. Good archers just annihilate them, while knights can trigger a shot from long range, then close in while they are reloading. They are the best at garrisoning defenses, but that's a dead weight at low pop cap. Cherry are just better at everything and are effective in combat. Vikings have awesome longbows that melt everything at civs, like swimming castles, and they have a unique infantry, a yet another variant of champions. This time less HP, more attack. They supposedly regenerate, but it happens so slowly that it doesn't really influence the combat, and it's very slow out of combat too. While each civilization got a truly unique unit, at the same time subtractiveness is severely toned down. In AoE, civs could be missing entire lines of units. Here, everything has everything at a decent stage. Everyone has champions. Only Persians have no long swords. Only Turks have no upgraded pikes. And without upgraded skirmishes, they really need gold to survive endgame. Pity there are no campaign maps as Turks to drag so long that you will have to actually think about not having decent rush units. Everyone has crossbows, and they are still one of the comfiest units even at their worst. Everyone has war galleys, which is really unnecessary. With them having a gold cost, at least one civilization could be relying on fire ships instead, say Byzantines. Everyone has capped ram, even Persians. Only Saracens have no cavalries, but they have heavy camels, which in this version is as good or better. Deal less damage and have less armor, but they kill the units that do matter. They melt paladins. You would think that unique units make AoE 2 civs more unique. But if that unit is bad, that civ feels exactly like every other civ. Meanwhile, in AoE, you will really feel your civ. Feel it missing some crucial units and will have to improvise, adapt, overcome. I felt like I had enough campaigns in AoE. I sure did not feel like that here. Not even in the insanely bloated Giant HD edition. As a campaign player, you never get to experience the longbows, Juginu, elephants, berserkers, or Yanicheri. Not even samurais, man. There are just 4 campaigns. The tutorial one doesn't count, unlike the Egyptian one. I'd like to have a campaign for each civilization. To this day I have no understanding how some of these civs play. The HD and DE battle scenarios are always very limited and gimmicky, and also filled with even more playable franks. The unique units are not as big of a deal gameplay wise, but with full stories and voice line sets, these civs do matter aesthetics wise. Also, every campaign should have a wonder map, just to force you to see it. Instead of such now popular legendary historical things as samurais, Juginu, berserkers, elephants, etc., the campaigns highlight the fantasy extrovers, fantasy saber throwers, and void raiders from Braveheart, which you can miss since they are in the tutorial. The heroes do not regenerate, so you can't play the tactical maps relying on them. And well, with just 4 campaigns at that point in time, the heroes were barely present in the game. And the game has the classic 5 difficulties, with the easiest being pretty easy. The moderate AI though is very aggressive in campaigns with all the scripted advantages it has. When you know the solution to the map and need a challenge, you can bump up the difficulty. But as maps are also kind of puzzles, it's better to play on the easiest the first time, especially if you do not know which units are good and are unaware that a lot of them are extremely situational. Also, if you are coming from the non-siege RTS games, including Age of Empires, Age of Empires 3, Age of Empires 4, and even Age of Mythology, the original Age of Empires 2 play balance is just that particular. And, well, I tend to forget that there was a time when I did not know English, and playing with scripted maps blind is very often not an option. Localizations are not a given, and there are many more languages on Earth than even the most localized game provides. There is no need to hunt down all the houses and fields to win anymore. In the non-objective oriented missions, getting the peasants and destroying producing buildings usually is enough. In Age of Kings, the pop cap is increased from 50 to 75, which is a big percent change, but still a pathetic number. The campaigns have pretty punishment menus,
and it is not citizen but crusader that has violated his word of honor.
The intros have voice acting, and there are PowerPoint slides with hand drawings. William Wallace.
Age of Empires 2 is about empire building.
I entirely forgot that the original game has a video intro for the marching and fighting. After learning to control the units, learn the economy and feeding the army. Get more units and training the troops, then edge up in research and technology. The Battle of Stirn is the first map that isn't hand-holding you link severe bruising. Fortune Alliance is a pretty short map, but it tries to teach you the changed mechanic of the relics. Instead of collecting them for one kind of a victory, you garrison them into a building to generate gold, and then there is still an option to enable the relic victory. The Battle of Falkirk is the biggest battle many players won in this game, because the rest of AoK campaigns tend to filter people, even on the easiest, even with all the AoE to DE changes. You are free to engage the enemy on your terms, and encouraged to build the mascot of the second game, the Trebuchet. The campaign has a solid story, but it is a bit too restrictive, especially compared to the Egyptian campaign. This tutorial tells me too much in direct line. That one gives a task and expects it to be done. I hate that you can't speed up the game in it at all, especially considering just how many times have I finished this campaign in the last 4 years. I don't count it as a proper civilizations campaign, because you get the full access only on the last map, and then it can be finished very fast. I've barely ever tried World Raider. Joan d'Arc. My story covers several events in Joan of Arc's life.
February 19, Army Camp near Vaucouleurs.
The cutscenes are narrated by a fake character with a fake accent, which is a partial improvement over the first game's storytelling, while also being done on a budget.
Bonjour, John. My colleague and I will escort you to the Chateau of the Dauphin, or else we will die trying.
The events in the maps are scripted in engine, and it's a solid way to tell a story. The second campaign, after the tutorial, opens with a short tactical map, and the yellow is allied with purple, despite what the story says. The only way to heal the units is garrisoning them in the tower back in the beginning of the map. The directions to the yellow camp are unclear, or absent. The second map starts as a tactical trip, and there's a monk to heal you up. You would think following the road is the intended solution, which also lets you to use your starting army. But there's a sneaky free transport ship allowing you to save your forces for the main battle. The map is pretty big, but if you PTE4, you barely engage with it. On the easiest available difficulty in HD, the multiple enemies were trying to overwhelm you with numbers. In DE, they send small attacking forces, but in the original, the actual easiest difficulty lets you play at your own pace. The Red's castles have no murder holes, you only need to cover your siege forces from other units. I spent resources maxing out the French Knight line, and they still were eaten by militia and archers and onagers. So I plopped a wood-only TC filled with the starting archers near the red gates, and got some rams. If you do not rush rams and do not participate in tower defense, it is a long and a bit tiresome map, even when you clearly understand the goal, even on the easiest difficulty. The third map doesn't match the newer versions. There is no gold across the river, so I just annihilated purple, which has no murder holes, to get his resources. The AI attacks harder than in HD, but it defends worse on the easiest. It's still a long map without me assaulting the main base this time. You have to be ready for the counter attack after you destroy the first castle. Red has no murder holes, and its archers don't outrange your castles yet. Some rams covered by some units can easily deal with the 3 isolated small castles. I played the Rising in HD by defending both crossings with castles and gathering an army while doing research. Now I've stole as many reds as I could and used the starting melee forces supported by monks to gank the green. Yellow is very aggressive, and it prevented my tower offense by destroying 2 castles in a row and was annihilating my units, until I switched to skirmishers and started to amass them. They covered a trap while it destroyed production buildings and sniped the town centers. The sieging is very particular in this game. I finished the Siege of Paris much faster in the real game than in the HD. That AI plays it like a random map and attacks with units which it is producing. But here, on the easiest, I just followed from flag to flag and punched a hole in the wall to run with the hero and the peasants to the goal, while the enemy was distracted by my cavalry. It's a short and a simple tactical map, but if you don't know the exact route and if you deviate from the script, you still can aggro red and do this map the wrong way. The map is not very strategic or obvious, it's probably just a tech showcase showing off the sheer size of this pre-designed city to suppress Orleans. I almost rushed a perfect martyr in HD, but made a mistake in the end and restarted. Also, I just wanted to play some Imperial Franks, so I was playing it like an RTS for hours. This time I did just rush it. Instead of going with the entire force, I selected only the horses to escort the civilian and ran directly to the left gate. After idling while we were breaking the wall, I just sent the cart to the goal. So, very fast I've cleared the campaign that was pissing me off in my childhood and in 2016 and in 2020. The original easiest difficulty is a proper good way for the new players to play the campaigns. Auto just finish them for completion, instead of the feeling of your arse being split with 60 monster cocks by the new and improved and extremely aggressive HD AI. Barber Ross. Holy Roman Emperor has come to be my favorite map. It is of solid length if you want to, and it highlights and complements Teuton's defensive play. The goal is to get the majority of relics. At first you defend the crossings, then you build and upgrade an army, then attack the AIs one by one. There's also scripted Mongols in the north, where you can buy some units. Henry the Lion is a weird little map. You have no economy and rely on tribute. You can get trading cards and fishing ships, so I got some Teutonic knights until the unit cap and sent all my forces on the Polish castle. I destroy it, Henki betrays me, I send my rams to destroy its castle, Poland resigns. So I find the remaining orange units and win. I restarted it on the moderate difficulty. The third one out of 5. Went for the Polish castle with rams, from there to Henry, then back to the upper corner to partition Poland. Then defended for a bit, and just when I went imperial and started getting units, Poland resigned again. I forgot to switch difficulty down from moderate, so when I started pop and anti-pop, my dog was gone in a minute. I sent my forces to green, got one peasant, and started building a town center right there to cover my soldiers. With soldiers I destroyed Green's army and barracks, then stole more peasants and all the buildings with the monks. With a green market intact I had infinite pocket gold, but the river was filled with purple ships. It took several blown up OPTCs to destroy them. I've put a castle on the other shore defending against waves of enemies, then pushed and built another castle on the bridge. The enemies use a lot of cannoneers and onagers and Teutonic knights, so flooding them with your Teutonic knights won't work. The goal is to convert one building, so I created a distraction and sent a monk to do just that. The Lombard League. Retreat south, build up, brought down, build a wonder. It was a typical annoying super long AoE 2 HD style map. The unit AI is brain dead and it matters a lot. You are stuck with a pathetic pop cap of 75 against 4 enemies, and the Byzantine castle outranges mine on a hill. Ships are everywhere and destroy my OP Teutonic TCs. Random enemies walk everywhere and pester you. The enemies spam cutting bombards, annihilating your +5 town centers. After spending many hours on moderate, being outnumbered 4-1, losing forces faster than I gather resources, with all my defenses being blown up by bombards and traps, which in this version have as much pierce armor as upgraded skirmishers, so they are almost immune to cannons, peasants and arrows. I got half into Venice, but with this AI I was not gonna waste more time with no gold, no wood, no nothing. It was literally zombie survival. Teuton knights are weak here, and your castles magically have reduced range. So I restarted it on the easiest and went across the seas for the fast victory road of putting a castle next to Green's walls, then I wander inside them. Oh wow, how fun. The way to win is to bully an isolated solitary weak AI without engaging with the rest of the giant map. This time in Barbarossa's march I've tried the other route. I was afraid of angering the big blue blob in HD, but turns out your force can deal with the defenders easily, then just run the horses to the flag. Crossing the sea is the hard part. It's filled with green ships and your new navy is barely enough to kill them. The upper path has way fewer yellow enemies. I did not go for the corner camp, just cleared out the way to the trees, and then I just rushed with 12 horses to the flag, leading a giant pack of wolves into the orange camp. For the Emperor sleeping I did the standard opening with plopping 2 castles at Yellow's gates. Since this game has the easiest difficulty and the original campaign AI, this was another grueling 3D printer versus 3D printer match from HD. Once I defended my castles and built an additional TC, I sent my starting force into the Yellow's base and harassed its economy while creating traps to snipe the military buildings, the TC and the castle. Then I built a string of TCs towards the blue and made a hole in the walls to move the cart to the flag. But of course in DE the blue was made to stream a torrent of units from its every building, because one-dimensional tug of war games are so fun. You can research spies while everyone is an ally, and it is very cheap. It is a story mythologizing a personalist autocratic rule that didn't manage to create a system that can outlive its creator. You play as Teutons, but the story is about the Holy Roman Empire, which is not holy, not Roman, and isn't an empire. During the ending, there's a joke that the narrator was your enemy all along.
Woogie, Woogie, Chingis! Woogie, Woogie, Chingis!
Chingis Khan. Crucible is an impressive exercise in script work, and it has good storytelling with multiple choices on this engine. But also, it is factually a fetch quest, where you ride the steppe for hours at the speed of a monk simulator. In HDE you have ludicrous speed, but in Age of Kings and DE, hahaha, good luck. You visit 5 tribes. Grey wants a relic, blue wants sheep, green wants to kill purple, purple wants to kill green, cyan wants you to kill a wolf. So the plan is pretty clear. First get sheep to get a monk, either by collecting them from the map or by attacking the red. But don't give the sheep to a wrong color. With monks, steal one of the relics. With the bigger army, deal with the wolf and one of the rivals, in any order. In the original game, you can switch your stance to neutral and steal everyone's forces with monks. But that's useful only with the rivals. The rest give you their armies when you finish their quests anyway. A Life of Revenge is pretty hard and super long in HDE on the standard difficulty. But AOK has the easiest difficulty. I had to defend, I had to attack, and then invaded the green and sniped the guy. It was an average length map and it still contained all the gameplay without increasing the difficulty to turn it into a several hours long slog. Then I restarted it on the hardest, and yes, the classic AoE 2 trick works fine. Send one scout to attack a palisade far away, make the rest of your starting units non-aggressive, and march directly into Red's camp while the hardest army is leaving it, bumping into your forces and ignoring them. Then destroy one palisade, go round and back, and assassinate the hardest target's arse, winning them up. In Into the China, I again rushed to a yellow, but it had way more resources than it should have, on the easiest compared to DE on standard. So it started building the wonder while I was still only going Imperial. And then it was a long ass growing map, still not as long as HDE. In the Horde Rides West, Rus is represented by Goths. DE goes for the generic flavor of Slavs. Goths are North Germans with a Western architecture set, which doesn't fit Rus at all. In the inter-Mongolian period, Rus was strongly influenced by Asia. In post-Mongolian period, it was a strong European gunpowder civilization. Pre-Mongolian period was pure Greek. This takes place not that long after the Christianization of Rus. Slavs countries were super under a Greek influence and were still submitting themselves to the Greek authority, considering themselves as being vassals to the Christian church in Constantinople. But the game for some reason insists on Middle Eastern architecture set for Byzantine that far west, despite Byzantium being Greek. Since there are no fitting architecture sets, I would still pick Byzantium for the Greek connection instead of Goths. By the time of the Mongol invasion, Slav countries lost all their connection to Germanic peoples. And even then, only Rus countries were actually influenced by that, inviting Germans to create a monarchic dynasty. You can take over the green forces buildings by attacking them fast. In HD, I've used the assassin script to annihilate half a yellow base. In DE, it was fixed, and I participated in a long grueling siege, because you have to pick the literally best option for the army, or the standard, easiest available. AI will 3D print replacement buildings and forces. This time I killed only some of the guards before activating the next script, just to see if it will still be easier to face the AI compared to DE, and it is. During the promise, the AI sends a ginormous army. Even 3 castles can do nothing against it, even with a preventive strike against the gathering forces, destroying most of the AI siege engines. They usually still level the castles. For the final mission of the Light Cav Civ, I went Light Cav. I would not recommend doing that. In DE, I did the timed achievement with knights against Magyars. Here, Teutons have pushed me past Subutai's arrival, past the destroyed bridge, and past the start of the wonder. Finishing the DE, and when the TAOK versions of this campaign back to back, I see that DE has updated the maps, replacing the civs with the more appropriate ones, and the standard AI gives up easier. But AI strategy is way more strong than in the original game on the easiest. At the same time, PopCap is usually bumped up 66%, so you can have a decent economy and a decent army. The addition of steppe lancers made Mongols more varied than the HD version with its 2 new techs, one of which is literal garbage, and the Hussars upgrade from the Conquerors. Originally it was a boring pure Mongudai civ, even before there was the new ranged research added into the game. In the current DE version, going Light Cav is an actual option, but not in the original. The story follows the Han's life. It is told from a POV of a simple soldier.
So begins my life's work, the secret history of the Mongols.
The narrator does a terrible fake accents, and it's a very dumb fanfic. The proud to this day nomads are portrayed as orcs. In this game, Saladin is Gandhi Teresa and Mongols are literally Mordor, despite not being any better or worse than the Europeans governments of the time. Salahadini. An Arabian Night is basically an attack move tactical map. Go from flag to flag and play the objective. Lord of Arabia introduces the recurring villain of the first part of the campaign. You have two allies who are bullied from time to time and you need to defend them. Their shores are not exactly safe either. The rest is the usual. Plop a castle near the sign, gather forces, defeat everyone. The Horns of Hatin tells you to not rely on defenses, but to use your mid force, and then gives you 75 pop cap against multiple strong enemies. Even if would only cost civs, in this map they are pointless against that many enemies. But the goal is not to eliminate these mid factories with sticks and stones, but to steal the relic. So, semi-rushing the objective is a way to win here. The initial antagonist is some French knight in an outlandish fantasy armor, and he meets his end here. I tried to play the Siege of Jerusalem fast and aggressive, as if it's AoE and not AOK. I dealt with orange alright, but once I finished, blue poured outside wiping my starting force. Then I tried to PTA4, since you need to deal only with the towers. Two are near you, another one is not far away, but out of the remaining, one is on the other side and one is right in the middle. While I was solving the gold shortage, I made a lot of skirmishers to just cover a trap, but well, trash units are trash, so they were all annihilated. Then I finally massed Mamluks and covered the trap while it was dealing with the remaining towers. Jihad is a pretty simple map in all the versions, yet I saw people struggling even with it. Well, just defend a little while gathering forces, either invest into the defense upgrades or go for a mobile Mamluk blob from the start. The first goal is to deal with the orange because of the wonder, so you need a couple of traps. The goal of the map is to destroy two cities, so the choice is either to have a moral high ground and ally with one of the cities and then have to deal with an isolated sea base, or to destroy two softer targets on your continent. I've played HD mostly by full conquest. Since I'm playing the three same games with minor differences, in TROK I do instead try to PTA4 ASAP. Yet somehow in the line and the demon I tried to do the objective in HD. So this time I wanted to train for the DE achievement of the elimination of the enemies, and with no AL trick. Funny how making just 4 traps from the start turns an extremely hard mission into a moderate one. You just destroy all the enemies while they are in the embryo state, instead of letting them to utilize their pop cap superiority. So, medieval losers took a generic genocider and, to explain their own failures, they turned him into a larger-than-life myth. The ancient town was back imported and is used by all the terrorists and terrorist states. The campaign is narrated by a fictional dancer with smurfs. It shows the civility of Muslims and the barbarity of the Crusaders, and how they lettered out the cruelty to the former. Yet, even after the supposed turn, most of the fictional Saladin's actions are extra chivalrous. Meanwhile, IRL Crusaders were killing mostly Christians, and Saladin was killing mostly Muslims. It's interesting how a 1999 campaign was still based on the Crusades mythology, but a late fan-made The Forgotten map with Lionheart is closer to the truth of the Crusades. This is the difference between an original work of art and people with no casuals welcomed for playtesting trying to meddle with it. Only about one map was as annoying as in the HD, and even that was because of me playing on moderate, unoptimally, and going for the harder route. The rest of the maps are way easier and simpler on the easiest when HDE on standard. I still kinda like the HD version for the HD DLCs, even for the Broken Earth The Forgotten, for the Obsidian Arrows and overcool Lost Tech, for the ludicrous speed and for the precise super slow speed, for the giant FOV on 4K screens, even if without zoom. You may not like it, but this is what peak TOK looks like. Not HD's mental AI players, not DE's reworked, changed, rebalanced maps with the new civs. For a casual player, I would maybe say to go DE plus a walkthrough plus the tutorial, since it is purchasable, has tons of content and a modern GUI. But it also has a significant difficulty increase compared to the original easiest setting. It's a challenge to win with puzzle maps in DE, but playing not as intended by the devs can often be winged from the first try in the original game. For a person who survived and beat DE, I would say go play HD for the original proper The Forgotten content. It's hard to recommend this version to novice players as the easiest one. The difference between the GUI usability in DE and AOK is generational, and it's not like the content was changed that much, unlike The Forgotten. Still, it was interesting to see all the removed things and to play a game that had a specific playstyle in mind and forced you to execute it, instead of esports boilers booming with 50 TCs, 100 peasants and 25 knights knights destroying the castles by hand while a line of replacements is waiting in 60 stables. The original AI players behave like a campaign AI players, instead of emulating esports bowlers, breaking the scripts tuned for the artisanal original AI and breaking the immersion with unpleasant esports bowlers tactics and really annoying difficulty. HD made me think that the game is grueling, long and unforgiving with its unhinged enemy AI pressuring you, while you are still restricted by the insanely demanded unit AI with formations. But as a fact, on the easiest difficulty, the true AoE 2 AI players are less aggressive, so you don't have to be sick with an esports ballerism or the encephalophone and think that strategy is about EPM, a half of which, if you look at the recordings playing, is them just mashing random buttons and running in circles just so the number will go up, instead of strategic planning and commanding the armies. That type of play is about raids of free hobo bandits and not even tactical extreme manual control. When you already know the scripts and the walkthroughs, that knowledge mitigates all the worst parts of this game, which is one type of play, but not a very strategic one. You can wing it first try on all the Age of Empires maps. You cannot wing it in Age of Empires 2 with its giant slow maps, the designed script maps, and with the game's particular siege combat paradigm.